Hello everyone. Does anyone here have relatives or even friends who has visual disabilities? Well, as a future educator, there may be a possibility that we can encounter children with visual disabilities. Then let me introduce to you the education of students with visual disabilities. I'm Bernally Magpatok from AMGO1. The education of students with visual disabilities. The integration of blind students in the regular classes started in the 1960s, a component of the teacher training program for selected public school teachers. These blind boys and girls with average or better mental ability were enrolled in regular classes at the school division of Pasay City, Manila, and the teacher training program department of the then Philippine Normal College. The new 10 years saw the organization of integrated programs in the different regions of the country. As the teacher training program continued at the Philippine Normal College, at present, the Resources for the Blind Incorporated collaborates with the Department of Education in training teachers during the summer term and in mainstream blind and low vision students in public school all over the country. The special education teachers teaches skills and concepts that most children learn visually through the remaining senses: audition, touch, olfaction, gustation, and other non-visual expertise. Blind students learn read and write in Braille. Two Braille codes are learned: the Filipino Braille Code and the English Braille Code American Edition. The Philippine Printing House for the Blind at the Department of Education transcribes most of the regular textbook and materials in Braille. The books and learning materials are distributed to students who are enrolled in residential schools, special schools, and regular elementary and secondary schools where they are mainstreamed. The Resources of the Blind Incorporated, foreign-funded non-government organizations, assist the Department of Education through teacher training, preparation of instructional materials, and other related projects. Blind children receive instruction in orientation and mobility. Orientation is the ability to establish one's position in relation to environment through the use of the remaining senses, while mobility is the ability to move safely and effectively from one point to another. It was according to Lowenfeld in 1973, cited in Howard 2003. Instruction in orientation and mobility begins at an early age to understand the basic concept about their bodies and their environment so they can move about effectively and safely. The special education teacher uses appropriate methods and procedures to teach travel techniques at home, the school, and the community. The long cane tables blind person to travel independently and gain self-esteem. The special education teachers uses manipulatives and tactile aids in teaching mathematics, science, and the other subjects in the curriculum. He or she constantly plans, creates, and implements activities that will enable and gain as much knowledge and skills as possible through their remaining senses. He or she is always on the lookout for the many opportunities for the students or participate in the regular school program. Truly an efficient special education teacher opens doors to a world from which his or her students who are blind, have low vision, are more removed than seeing children. It is according to Lowenfeld, 1973. When a student who is blind or has low vision is mainstreamed in your class, with the advent of inclusive education for children and youth who have disabilities, more and more students who are blind, deaf, with mental retardation, or with orthopedic impairments are enrolled in regular class. A special education teacher works closely with the regular teacher so that the children with disabilities can participate fully in most of the class activities. They discuss how the two of them can help the special child learn in the regular class side by side with his or her regular classmate. As a future regular teacher, You should know the basic expectations from you as a partner of the special education teacher in inclusive education, and be child's regular classroom teacher. You will soon become sensitive to the individualized needs of the children who has a visual impairment. Your partner, the special education teacher, will be there for consultation, for special instruction in braille mobility and orientation or travel techniques, and provision of materials adapted for the use of students. It is important to know that children with visual impairments differ in their ability to use their remaining vision, while they rely on their other senses like audition, touch, smell, or taste. One may show preference for one sense or others. How can you make your student with visual impairment feel comfortable in your classroom? The following rules will help you. First, it may sound odd to us who can see, but we use the word look and see when communicating with a blind person. These words are much a part of the vocabulary of the student with visual impairment as they are of any of your seeing students. He or she uses these words to connote his or her method of seeing, either by manipulating or touching an object or looking very closely at it. It is absolutely acceptable to use expression in daily conversation such as see you later or look here. Second, introduce him or her as you would any of your students. Instruct the seeing classmates to talk to him or her directly and not through you. Encourage the blind students to answer his or her classmates' questions directly too. Third is include him or her in a class activities. The special education teacher can offer suggestions on how you may go about the child's full and active participation in class activities. Fourth is all children want to be a leader in class activities. Extend the same opportunity to the blind children. Fifth, the rest of the class should apply as well to the child with visual impairment. He or she may not be excused from school rules and regulations because of his or her condition. Sixth is encourage the blind child to rave about the classroom, to get the materials, or to do certain activities. Seventh is give verbal instructions or oral cues. Since the blind child does not see facial expressions like a not to say yes or knitting of the brows, saying please explain further, or an arm movement suggesting that he or she may move or over to you. 8. Provide space to accommodate his or her special materials like bulky braille books and large prints books, braille typewriter, tactile aids, and others. 9th is motivate the seeing classmate to become interested in topics related to vision and visual impairment. You may integrate these topics in the different subjects. 10th is your acceptance of the child with visual impairments will serve as a positive example to his or her seeing classmates. 11th is when approaching the blind students, always say who you are interested of, asking him or her to guess who you are. Voices are not always easy to identify, particularly in crowds or in stress situations. Lastly, the blind students may exhibit a certain mannerism like rocking, clapping the fingers in front of the eyes, or poking the fingers in the eye. Consult the special education teacher on how to deal with these behaviors. The special education teachers will explain to you how the blind student can get around the classroom, school building, grounds, and the other community by himself without accidents. The special education teacher will teach the blind students orientation and mobility techniques. Orientation strategies enable the blind student to be familiar with the classroom, the school building, the ground, and surrounding areas at home. The blind students become oriented to the house, neighborhood, and community. Meanwhile, mobility strategies allow the blind students to travel from a point of reference like the door to the other parts of the classroom. The classroom is the point of reference in traveling to the different parts of the building and grounds. The school gate is the point of reference in traveling to the community. The blind student uses hand techniques or travels safely in small and familiar places like the classroom. Seeing classmates may be requested to act as sight guide when negotiating less familiar places like the school, building, ground, and the community. Came to travel techniques are applied. How about his or her textbook? The Philippine Printing House for the Blind, located at the Philippine National School for the Blind in Pasay City, and the Resources for the Blind Incorporated in Quezon City, transcribe printing books in Braille. If some books are not available in Braille, a reader can help the blind student. How about board work or homework? Classmate can dictate the print materials to the blind student so that he or she can write them down in Braille. If tests and other print materials are given to the special education teacher a few days ahead of the schedule, the latter can transcribe them into Braille. Extra time will frequently be needed to finish a test or written work in Braille. Allowing time and a half is usually acceptable. Another practice is to allow the body or write down the blind student's test answer. As a teacher, you should have faith and trust in the ability of your blind student to participate actively in class activities. Think of ways and means to adjust highly visual lessons to tactile or auditory modes. In the absence of vision, remember that the blind students has 4 senses, modalities to use in gaining knowledge and learning the skills in the curriculum. Thank you.